Seeing that it's 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Everybody's had a chance to look over the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections or questions? If not, is there approval of the agenda? Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda approved. Approve the previous board minutes. From May 21st, 2024. Everybody's had a chance to look at those, read those. Is there any additions or corrections to those? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Public comment. Is there anybody that would like to make a public comment? Doesn't seem like there is. Well, we can start right in with our appointments. I see they're here today, so we have an appointment with SEMCAC. Come forward. Introduce yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Jen Hengel. I'm the Executive Director at SEMCAC.
And Bill Spitzer, the Director of Transportation for SEMCAC Transportation.
And we were supposed to have Jeff Wyant, our Senior Services Director, with us this morning, but he can't make it today. So I will speak to some of his programs as well this morning. Thank you for having us. As I said, I'm the Executive Director. I've been in this position just since mid-November now. Bill is also new to his position just in December, so we wanted to come and introduce ourselves and give you updates on our programming in Houston County in particular. So within your packets this morning, there is the Houston County Impact Report. We do this for each of the counties that we serve. And that's also just handed out our annual report that was from 2023 with many of the statistics and financial information from our financial year that ended September 30th of 2022. So we're working now on updated annual report, which we'll also send to you. As SEMCAC is a community action agency, we've been serving Houston County since 1966, along with Winona and Fillmore counties. And then in 1975, we added Dodge and Steele. In 1985, Mower County. And then in 2004, Freeborn County. So we are now the designated community action agency for 7 counties in Southeast Minnesota. We also have programs and services in 5 additional counties, including Goodhue, Rice, Wabasha, Olmsted, and Waseca. So we have just a few services in those. There are 24 community action agencies within the state of Minnesota, and there's over 1,000 across the country, formed by the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. So been around for a while, but continue to have impact on the people in your communities and in your county. We're a nonprofit, 501c3. We have over 60 locations across our service area. Here in Houston County, we have a Head Start programming in Spring Grove and the La Crescent School District. We have senior dining sites across your county, which are shown on the impact report. And we have a contact center and food shelf right here in Caledonia as well. So the report that you have does show that we've served over 20,000 people across Southeast Minnesota. And then more specifically within Houston County, there are some data and statistics within the report. We have senior nutrition program, as I mentioned, senior dining site, where we served meals in congregate settings to seniors, over 208 seniors last year. That's for anyone that's 60 and over and their spouses that can dine at those sites. We also have Meals on Wheels delivery for home delivered meal service for those that aren't able to get out to those sites. Almost 300 seniors in Houston County received that service last year. So in all, there's about 38,000 meals that were served last year to seniors in Houston County. We also have a program called the Senior and Caregiver Advocacy Program. We have a caregiver advocate assigned just to Fillmore and Houston counties that helps seniors access resources in their communities. In particular to not only for healthcare, but also for the SNAP program, the nutritional assistance program. They can help seniors enroll in those resources so that they can extend their limited household dollars to meet their basic needs. We also have our energy assistance program. Over almost 400 households in Houston County received energy assistance last year. And that impacts a lot, many people across the service area. And from those applicants that apply for our energy assistance program, we can see the high energy consumers and look at weatherizing those homes. So we have a weatherization crew that will go out and weatherize homes. The priority areas are high consumption, senior citizens, individuals with disabilities, or households with children. Those are kind of the priorities that we look for home weatherization. Last year, 11 households in Houston County received weatherization services, and then another 14 received household conservation improvements through agreements that we have with utility programs in the area. That are called conservation improvement programs. And we also have a housing specialist out of our Rushford office that serves this area with rehab loan programs. So we have, we administer some of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency programming. We also work with CEDA on small cities development programs. And then you'll see in the report that in the city of Polka, we had 10 households that received assistance for housing rehab. And then CEDA will do the commercial and rental rehab in that community as well. Our Head Start program helps youngsters and their families access resources, not only preschool education, but also healthcare, transportation, clothing, food, making sure that those families have what they need in order to provide for their child and make sure that the child has a good start. So we have that, like I mentioned, in the Crescent Polka School District and with Spring Grove School Districts right now in Houston County. Across our service area, over 300 kids are served with that program. And then our outreach and emergency services, we have the food shelf here in Caledonia. 250 households receive services on a regular basis from our food shelf in Caledonia. We also have our homeless prevention programming to make sure that people that are at risk of becoming homeless or are homeless can get first month's rent or a security deposit payment, might be able to get mortgage assistance to help them get by if they've had a financial crisis, a medical issue, or something that's hurt their family financially. We can get them by with their rent or mortgage so that they can stay in their home and prevent that homeless situation. So we have that program, and we also just this year now contracted with Houston County Human Services to administer some additional homeless prevention programming. Some funding that the county had received from the Department of Revenue that now we're administering for the county from our office in Caledonia. We also do a lot of information and referrals for families too. So if they come to the contact center, they can get access other resources. So we have staff right here that can help people access all the different community resources that are available to them. We have a clinic in Winona, a family planning clinic that's been there since the late 1970s, and also serves residents from the area, Western Wisconsin, as well as Fillmore and Houston counties, and has been helping underinsured, uninsured people, low-income people, be able to access some healthcare services. So that's kind of a general overview of all of the different programs besides public transportation, which we have Bill here to talk to transportation this morning. But we do have a 21-member board of directors that oversees us. Mr. Burns is on our board, and we've also have Jim Wally from the Crescent on our board now, and Carolyn Cripps from Houston, or from the city of Houston, that is serving on our board. So we have representation from all of our counties on our board of directors. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity to come in and speak with you today. SIMCAC Transportation has basically three different branches that operate within Houston County. One being the public transit, the other one being the volunteer driver program, and the last one being the caravan program. I'm going to start out talking a little bit about the public transit. In your package, you should have this little map here. This little map kind of indicates all the different transits that are within the state of Minnesota, outside the bigger communities. So there's a lot of different rural transit, public transits that are operating within the state of Minnesota. Also in your packet, you should have the narrowed down to the Rolling Hills Transit. We service 5 different counties in southeastern Minnesota, so we provide the public transit for a number of different communities. In fact, 11 communities, and we operate 13 buses. We actually operate 2 buses within Caledonia. Those 2 buses service the communities of Spring Grove, Caledonia, Houston, and we also make a connection with La Crescent as well. So within those service area, we serviced about 1,333 passengers for the first quarter of 2024, and also for the entire year of 2023, it was 4,900 passengers that were serviced in the Caledonia, Spring Grove, and Houston area. A lot's to about 3,840 people hours that run those different buses, and we're funded through the state of Minnesota. So a lot of our services are provided courtesy of MnDOT and your tax dollars as well. So 80% of our budget is basically funded by MnDOT. The other 20% is from communities like the communities that we serve or the counties that we serve provide us what's called a local match, and that can be up to 20%. Currently, our operating budget is funded 95% by MnDOT and 5% by the local match. That has been since COVID-19 stricken us. However, a lot of our infrastructure, our buses are funded up to 20%. So, for example, community of Caledonia just received one of their brand new buses, replaced one of their buses that was over 5 years old and over 250,000 miles on it. So this bus was replaced in the city of Caledonia. We ended up contributing about $23,000 toward that piece of infrastructure. Very thankfully, we received a Gunderson grant that paid for 20,000 of that. So the other 3,000 was taken out of our reserve account. So we rely very heavily on counties and cities to help us with that match, so we can provide those services for individuals. Those services include a $2 ride. So if anybody calls our services in the city of Caledonia, Spring Grove, or Houston, or they want to get to La Crescent for $2, they can get anywhere around the community of Caledonia. For an additional $3, you can get down to Spring Grove, and some of the other communities, Houston and La Crescent, would cost them $6 to get there as part of our public transit. So it's one of those opportunities for individuals to get from here to there. A lot of our seniors use our services a lot, as well as a lot of students. Those are the individuals that we serve the most. However, we serve anybody in the community. I always tell people, you know, we are very fortunate, or I'm very fortunate, because I have 2 vehicles parked in my garage, and anytime my wife or I want to go anywhere, we just hop in the vehicle and go wherever we need to go. Unfortunately, not everybody in our communities are as fortunate as I am that have those vehicles, and they rely heavily on public transit. So I'm going to tell you just a couple of stories before we conclude here. So one of the stories I'm going to tell you is I sat in your seat. I was a mayor of a small community in southeastern Minnesota, and we actually cut this service with the transit. And that was because of a lack of knowledge on my part and a lack of knowledge. So that's why I think it's very important for me to come in here and share some of the statistics and the data. Incidentally, I did reinstate it before I concluded my term as mayor. However, I did have a little penance there. So as soon as I left my job, and some of you know that I was a law enforcement officer for 31 years, I started driving bus. And I think that's where my stories began. And I think that's where my penance began for cutting the service. Because one of my first customers was an individual that was stricken to a wheelchair, and she needed to get to her appointments in Rochester. And she was paying over $100 to get from St. Charles to her appointment in Rochester and back. Just to give you an idea of what we charged her is $12. So an individual that was already strapped financially was able to use our services to get to her medical appointment. The second story I'm going to share is as I was driving, I got to know a lot of our clients, and one of the clients in Stewartville, Kathy, she no longer could drive a motor vehicle. She became to that age where she just felt that she was going to give up her driving privileges. but she still had a husband that was in assisted living. And she really wanted to go to lunch with her husband every day. So the only way that she could do that is utilize our service. So for $2 to get to the assisted living, and then $2 to get back home, for $4, she's able to have lunch with her husband 3 times a week. So it's a great service that enables a lot of individuals in our communities to get from here to there. So it's very important that we look at how we can support those projects. So like I said, a lot of our finances are covered by MnDOT. However, there is a local match. So just to give you an idea of buses, okay, that bus that I just showed you right there, that cost $94,000 to actually get that bus. Of course, I said that 80% was covered by MnDOT. We just took delivery Friday of 2 new buses. That went up to $114,000 for those 2 buses. We have 3 more buses that will be getting in December. That number went up to $148,000 for those buses that we will receive in December. And then I had to order one this past April for a bus that we're going to take delivery in 2023, or it's 2023 order, but we're not going to receive it for another year. But just to give you an idea, that bus was $192,000 that I paid for that one bus.
Same kind of bus?
Same bus, identical, same options, everything was identical to that bus that we just received in Caledonia. Incredible amount of increases in those buses. The buses that we're looking at purchasing in the fall of this year, hold on to your hats, boys, here we go. $239,000 for those buses. It's crazy of how much those buses have went up in cost. So we're trying everything that we possibly can to reduce that. But when you get those numbers, and I know a couple of you drive a truck, and you know that those miles, the more miles that you get, the more maintenance that you have to do on those vehicles. And we really want to get those vehicles renewed so as often as we can. So that's our public transit side. I'll offer it any questions that you may have on that, but the other 2 services that we do provide is the Caravan service, which is a van service that provides transportation for individuals that need to get to their medical appointments that probably have like insurance that are able to supplement that. So in Houston, we provided, I got to put my glasses on, sorry, gentlemen, 97 rides in the Caravan service. And then we also have what's called the volunteer driver program, which we utilize volunteers in your community. So in 2023, we provided 798 rides with that particular service. Those particular services operate on insurance. So most of those rides are provided to those clients. It's paid for by insurance. Our public transit is that other opportunity for individuals that probably don't have insurance to cover those rides. And that's why we want to keep those rates as low as we possibly can. So like I said, those rates are $2 for in the community of Caledonia, $3 for under 8 miles within the Caledonia, and then over 8 miles is a $6 charge. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have with our service.
So from Caledonia to Gunderson Clinic, do you go to Gunderson Clinic or don't you?
So Gunderson Clinic in Caledonia.
La Crosse.
In La Crosse, we would have to make a connection because that is one of the limitations that we have with this little chart here is that if there is a bus service between here and the destination, we have to use that particular service. So there is another service in La Crescent. So we would have to make a connection with the connection with the Crescent service. We do not go to Winona from Caledonia just because of the distance. It's not cost effective for us to do that. But yes, we could do that. It's within our service area. So for example, our Winona County buses, we have one in Lewiston, St. Charles, and Dover Yoda. Those buses do go into Winona and service that. But just because Caledonia is just so far and would take our bus out of service for such a long period of time, we don't make that run.
An individual might be able to get transportation though from Caledonia to La Crosse through the Caravan program now. Because the Caravan program is new in 2023 and that program can cross state line.
Well, do they have handicapping?
Yes. Yeah, I forgot to mention, all of our vehicles, except for, of course, the volunteer driver, that they rely on their personal vehicles. But our caravan has handicap accessibility, and every single one of our buses are handicap accessible and can actually accommodate up to 3 wheelchairs in each one of the buses.
So what would the van cost to go from Caledonia to Gunnison?
This is a ballpark, about $50. And generally that's covered by insurance.
Yeah.
There's a flat rate and then there's a per mile. That's ballparking it.
Well, I mean, people ask, so.
Yep.
We know.
The volunteer program,
So the volunteer program, unfortunately, as I'm sure you've probably heard over and over again, we're having trouble finding those volunteers, right? Because our volunteers are aging out. We're not replacing the volunteers with as many that are retiring from the service. So that's kind of why we started the caravan service, is to kind of supplement that. And probably eventually going to move entirely to that, where you have a paid driver that is responsible for a particular area. Currently, we have 2 caravans that are operating within our service area, one that's in the Rushford area, and then one that's stationed in the Casson area. And both of those vans, like I said, operate in actually a 6-county area. So they take on Steele County as well with the caravan service. But yeah, it's a great service, but unfortunately, a lot of our volunteers are aging out. But we do still provide, quite a number of rides. I think the last report was that we went from 100 volunteer drivers and now we're down to 50 to 55 drivers.
the volunteer drivers, how much advance notice? I mean, the bus is around, the caravan. How much advance notice do the volunteer drivers have to have?
Typically, we ask for 24 hours on both. However, like you said, the bus is already here, right? So if there is availability on the bus, if you call today and say, hey, I need to get to the barber shop, or I need to get to the grocery store, the Quick Trip, or whatever, if we have an opening, we'll fill you right in. However, we do require or ask, it's much easier for us to schedule 24-hour notice on all of our services actually.
So that bus in Caledonia, that's stored here?
It is. We actually have 2 buses in the city of Caledonia. We had that Caledonia was one of our biggest performers before COVID-19. You hauled the most passengers in Caledonia that we had. That's why we had 2 buses stationed here. Both of those buses are stored here at the fairgrounds. And then we also have a spare bus that's stored here as well. So we actually have 3 buses within the limits of Caledonia.
You built a new bus garage in Cass, did you?
Yes, we do have a facility in Casson, done way before me, like Executive Director Hengel said. I'm new to the position here. People before me felt that that's where the growth was happening in our service area, and we did build a facility there. Just so you know, one of my goals is to have stations put out throughout the district to spread those services out a little bit more. So my hope is to eventually have a facility close to Caledonia here, close to St. Charles, and then close to Stewartville. So that's one of the things that I.
A question with regard to the meals program. There's senior dining at a state that seniors can go and eat. But the people that can't get out, then they have delivery. Are you having trouble getting the deliveries, enough people to make them?
I think that's always a challenge, and it kind of depends on the area, but we do have we work with a lot of civic organizations and churches that will provide volunteers for certain weeks of the month. And so I don't know specifically in Houston County, but I can find that out.
Just
Yeah.
You're referring to the Meals on Wheels?
Yeah, Meals on Wheels delivery in different communities. Yeah.
I know there's
Yeah.
church groups or.
Right. Yeah.
So like for weatherization. Right, do you have enough staff?
Well, that's a great question. I think that we're actually hiring right now for our weatherization crew position. And with the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed at the federal level, there's more funding coming down through for weatherization program. So that is definitely an area of growth right now and that we're probably gonna see for the next 2 to 3 years. So we do work with a lot of contractors as well and hire or contractors to do some of the weatherization work, but also some of the home improvement projects and things too. So always looking for more contractors to partner with.
So,
Yes,
How does Habitat for Humanity and Cross interact? Do you work with them or are you competitors? I mean, they're both kind of do the same thing, right?
we work together, I would say, yeah, and as well as the Habitat Winona. That they do housing rehab as well, but they work very closely with Cindy Vitzi in our office who does housing rehab loan. You know, just making sure that like referrals, like if they can't do a project, then perhaps Cindy can get them into her programs or vice versa. So, yeah.
any more questions? Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good work.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, one of the things that I did provide too is 10 reasons why public transit is important in our community. So I did include that little piece of information too, and kind of a justification of why we're asking for a $5,000.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right, good enough. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a lot of licensing applications here. Is there any questions about those, or if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Everything else seems to be in order too. I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda approved. Action items, consider reviewing and approving payments. Carol. You have anything you would like to add? Okay, everybody's had a chance to look at those. Any questions on those? If not, is there a motion to approve the payments?
So moves.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Again,
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Payments approved. Action item number 2, discuss / change the step placement of the assessor.
I asked to have that put on.
You
Only
did?
because-
It says tested.
Well, I asked us to have it put on. But it would appear, it would appear that if that step 7 isn't going to get it done.
We just proved, we had this discussion last week.
I understand. Are we willing to stick to that? And lose the assessor?
Stick to that, lose the accessory. I don't think we're gonna lose it.
Well, I don't know. I guess
Well-
that's up for discussion. I mean, that
That's why.
we
Can we vote though?
we did an act.
That doesn't mean we can't change.
the original discussion started out with a step 9, which didn't get the second at the time. I entered it as 7 as a step to work on it.
Which was approved.
But I still felt strongly about 9, but I gave a compromise. But I guess that's my part of what we discussed last.
My only concern is what we're gonna end up losing and what's gonna happen as far as the assessor's office is an integral part of the town. As far as valuations in order to place tax value, in order to generate the tax dollar on the levy. I understand Fillmore law, their assessor to homestead. They don't
Well,
have
he-
unions to deal with it.
He
I'm
went
assuming
to-
it's similar that we're dealing with here.
Well, we're assuming a lot of things, but I mean. This is something that we were discussing all last meeting. It's rather unorthodox to all of a sudden come back and. Change your minds and now we're gonna, I mean,
Just, that's why I wanted the discussion. If we're willing to leave it like this and let it go. That's fine. I have a concern about what's gonna end up happening.
Me too.
Greg, you wanna leave it the way it is?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Thoughts on about one way or the other?
I understand what you're saying and what Dewey's saying, but my only reservation is setting precedents that we kind of had a long discussion on last. We haven't officially heard whether or not he's accepting that what we gave or not. We're kind of doing this to speculate.
Yep.
We don't really have facts.
It's my understanding he's over there as we speak, and they're speaking with him today. But I don't know what the result is. I don't have any other information for you.
Concern is finally back up on, squared away with the state. Done a great job getting that squared away, done a good job as far as everything he's done for the county. The increases that the state want that he's argued against and won and the different things that his office. And it's not just him. It's what the office has done. Are we gonna slide? If we lose, and maybe we don't lose, like Greg said, but I have a suspicion.
It's another 35 miles for him to drive.
But you know, it's been the good leadership that gets got that team working and. Comments I get, and I have the largest district. Of people saying, well, I went in or upset. I came out understanding how it works and the explanations that have been given. You know, and yeah, but it's a $20,000 to $30,000 difference we're talking about. And, you know, $20,000 and $30,000, well, that took my daughter from her previous job to her current job. And with the economics as they are today, people have to look at that. And of course, Eric and I are dealing with negotiations on the union level, and we're seeing all kinds of numbers that are.
well, that's just it, you know. And I recuse myself.
Yep.
But to bring up that Dewey brings up the union thing, we are in a negotiating year. We have not met with MAPE yet, which was, this position is in the MAPE union. I mean. There's a potential, they're gonna be asking for a large increase there as well, so I mean. Both sides need to look at that possibility too,
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Cause you know,
And that's what we kind of discussed a little,
right,
right?
you know,
I just wanted to
But it's a,
reiterate this conversation only from the point of view that
Well, we got some awful good qualified people below them, so I'm not too nervous.
on the assumption that they stay.
Yes, they.
well, I would hope they would stay, I mean, they've all done a very good job, this is not personal, this is not. To me, this is not. You know, they're all doing a good job, they're well, been trained well, they've handled the public well. But when it comes to the step and placement, it's a matter of fairness and how we conduct our placements fairly across the board and not give someone extra special treatment for a huge jump or a whatever, you know, so. And that's the discussion we all had last week. And voted on and came to that conclusion, came to an action.
Compromise action.
Right. I assume that was all this was taken into consideration.
Wanted to ask one last time.
So from that action, did you receive a reply? That's,
Commissioner Schultz, the response I received was no decision, waiting for the interview and I'm informed, decision by that board yet today. Believe they're meeting right now.
bottom line, was no decision.
Well, they're meeting today.
It wasn't accepted, I can say it wasn't, an amount that would cause the individual to contact Fillmore and say, no, I'm not interested.
There wasn't any form of a counter to you. A counter to you?
Said it still would be interested in hearing from the board, but is pursuing Fillmore at this time. So I don't know what that means. Also, just as a reminder, we did recently lose one of our other staff members, whom I recently spoke with about the potential of coming back, but then I don't know whether that's happening. So things are a bit
But
up in the air.
that's being advertised for.
That position is being advertised right now, and we're seeking applicants at all levels.
Well. I mean, there's no action here of what. Could be, I mean, it's just a discussion, right?
It does not sound like anybody on the board is willing to change what we did last week.
Well, either way, I'd still recuse.
I
myself.
understand, but Greg and Bob and whatnot, it doesn't sound like there's a change. Just one last chance to talk about it before. Yeah, before we move on to the thing. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. But
Okay,
I have a concern about what's gonna happen. We'll face that when it comes.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll move on to discussion items, board updates. Next Tuesday, no, Monday is our District 9 meeting in Faribault County, correct?
Yep.
Is anybody gonna go to that or
I am.
anybody else planning on going out to that?
I was thinking of it, but I had a commitment, so I may not be
Next week, when what?
next Monday.
Next Monday,
Next month.
Starts at 8:15. 8 o'clock is registration, 8:15 is the start of the meeting, done at
We just get pretty early.
about 5.
I plan on going if the weather permits. It's nice.
You need rain, right?
If you're going, Bob, I would like, you know, unless you were going. Commissioner Scholl, okay, is your vice chair. You know. One of us, if I can't make it, then you could talk on our behalf. Would that be fine?
If you do want to go, we can meet at the bridge.
Okay,
Meet at the bridge.
all right. We have Public Health Joint Board of Health this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I believe. Yep. And we'll find out there. What's gonna happen.
Maybe.
We're gonna have negotiations here too. I'm hoping we can bump that up. This morning sooner, so that we have time to can still make joint board of health too, so. Take a quick.
Which union is it?
LES 60. jailers.
See,
That's all I got. Dewey,
not much else going on right now. I got, city council tonight. I guess there's some things going on that might affect us. I'll find out, sure. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet the last couple of weeks.
Did you get an agenda email?
I got an agenda on it. Most of it has to do with developments and I can show it to you. If I can find it here.
Made him mad. I don't see one.
Yeah,
get used to that.
there's development and let's see what else. Yeah, there's just a little bit, it has to do with Walnut Street and South Third. That's it.
Commissioner Burns,
I had a Hiawatha Valley Mental Health meeting to review. What's the employee review? And the board meeting is coming up, so just a review. We had finance this morning. As far as the highway department, all their bids are out. They're gonna be getting their information back. So they're monetarily ahead, but soon that the expenses will be coming as far as these jobs that are going on. The symbol striping is done and the state's gonna come in and stripe the lines. Health and Human Services, we approved the 67-day person today in the consent agenda because the AmeriCorps, the program ends in July and then restarts in September. New funding starts in September, so this 67-day fills in the gap between the July end and the September start. And that's opioid dollars, so it doesn't have any bearing as far as the levy or the finances of the Health and Human Services. There are 3 opioid cases that are paying money now to the county and still cases that are in the courts. The Sheriff's Department is a little bit over on spending, but the reason that they're over is they received grant funding in December that didn't get spent until this year. So they surplus last year. Now it shortened them up on their budget this year.
is that grant that
Body camera, dash cam.
they spent on? But they didn't use all that, did they?
I don't know if they did.
About half.
So what's good? What's the other half going to be used?
You'd have
Good
to
question.
Brian.
And audit and finance, their costs are over, but it's due to the election. And have made application for reimbursement on the expenses due to the election. One thing that she did mention is the election machines, not those little ones, but the big ones that you slide the sheets into. Those were, they bought those in 2006. And they're starting to show their age and they're big and heavy. They weigh 75 pounds a piece. The new kind weigh about 27, 28 pounds. So that's a 2025 potential. So that's something to be looking at as far as the budget next year's concerned.
That those great big heavy earmark.
Yeah.
They need.
They, you know, so
There
that
gotta be something smaller and
Yeah.
better than that, ain't there?
there is new kind that are only 27 pounds. Instead of using a full sheet of paper, it's a letter sized piece of paper, a letter envelope sized piece of paper. So there's variations in that. So
So they get hooked up to the internet too.
I can imagine they'd be hooked up just like
that
everyone.
discussion, and I don't know the answer. And we should pretty soon start working on the budget as far as the departments are concerned, at least equipment, supplies, you know, the general expenses, and then wait and see what happens with the.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be a good idea because, you know, we're not going to know on the payroll part until until the end of the year if we're lucky.
Well, we'll still need to put some type.
We'll have to put a number in.
there.
Work
Just to start with.
like,
So like I said, finance this morning, this board meeting, we know about Fillmore, and then I got a Selco meeting this afternoon in Rochester.
Commissioner Schultz,
Had, two phone calls from, Oka area after the, zoning meeting on the property that we submitted. One of the calls, wish that, we would watch as commissioners, the, proceedings when they're online. Meeting. Be interesting.
I stopped in to the zoning office this morning and talked to Marty and Amelia and I was gonna mention it to Andy too, but Amelia's gonna request Andy to put that on out there so we can watch that. From what I understand, it's still gonna come to the board.
That's,
Yeah, it was, the planning commission denied it for your approval.
Recommended denial.
one passed and one denied.
The Board of Adjustment passed and the planning commission denied it.
So the planning commission's denial is gonna come for us.
Yep.
Over,
You can either approve it or deny it, whatever you want to do.
Board of Adjustment.
That was just for variances that approved and that's done.
So which part of it are we gonna
The
look at?
conditional use permit.
I mean, it was an ordinance call. I mean, our ordinance says that you gotta stay 25 feet away from the toe of the hill. And you cannot dig into the hill. Well, they want a variance so they can dig into the hill 12 feet into that mountain. In 7-foot wall, but they want to dig in 12 feet into the hill. I mean, 12 feet into that mountain, they want to dig. Take the dirt all the way to the top and open up that whole mountain. Soil and Water, they were dead against that because it's just gonna turn into a mess. Because that hill, every time it rains, that hill's gonna come sliding down. And I don't know how big a retaining wall you'd have to put in to stop it. I know a 7-footer ain't. But that's the reason why it was denied, because of the ordinance.
And setback,
Some of them, they passed on the setbacks. Yeah.
I suggest you guys get the packet information here and it's all in here. That way, I'm sure it'll get sent to us in the packets to look it over for next. I believe it's coming next week.
Next
Is there a way to make sure that's in the packet?
Yep.
The map.
Yep. I got a copy of it. If you guys want to go get a copy now, I'm sure they can find you one.
Well, they were, they're cramped to begin with. They gave them a 10% variance, so they only got 9/10 of an acre and they're supposed to have an acre. And that's why they're trying to put a size 14 shoe in me. That's what they're trying to do. There's a 12,009 square foot trailer house there right now. And they want to put in a 4,040 building, 40 feet wide so I'm not sure the length, but I know the length. Width is 40 feet. And it's a tight area for that. If they wouldn't dig out of the hill and build a smaller house, I think that could be done. But they want to dig into the hill. Well, even they want to move their house right up to it. They won't have it back. Yeah,
It's show. But anyways, I received 2 calls on that and they really wanted us to be able to watch that. So thank you.
Greg,
well, that's all I had is that zoning meeting and that's what happened and. I mean, if we're gonna break our ordinances, then we shouldn't even have zoning, That's in our ordinance and. I mean, this guy, we passed one 2 months ago with the toe of the hill at 25 feet. He got a variance to move closer to that 25-foot mark, but he couldn't touch the hill. So I mean, we're holding up the ordinance, but now they want to throw it out here. So. And Soil and Water is dead against them taking that hill down because he said it's just gonna open up a mess. How are you ever gonna get him to go back? And the well is within 2 feet of the house and it's supposed to be 50 feet. I mean, it's too bad. I mean, I don't know who let them on to think that they were gonna be able to build that size of a building there, but I think they could squeeze a smaller building. You know. That shed will not fit in there. If they wanna move it tight up to that bank, I mean. It's like. We get one of them, like 07 floods and them rains, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, you got a boulder coming down and go through your house. That ain't gonna be pretty.
Got anything else, Greg?
That's all I got.
Okay,
That's,
Tess, you wanted to?
Yes, Commissioner, may I approach?
Yep.
I was just got off the phone with Sheriff Swedberg, and he would respectfully request that we change Amy Gerke's start date from 6/1 to 7/1. I contacted him to inform him that she could start, and he's said he's a month off. They aren't gonna be able to finish her background. So I wanted to come in here and see if we could just get that changed and that going.
Do we, okay,
So
so
be on there.
that was on the consent agenda.
It
Yep.
was, and I don't know if you want to take the opportunity
Update.
today to address it or not, but I just thought I'd.
Well, do you want to rescind, is there a motion to rescind the approval of the consent agenda and then start over? Or can't we do that?
Well, we should be able to do it. Louis, you made the motion, didn't you?
you
You
want to
wanna-
resend it, or resend my second?
To change the date. at next meeting.
That's the best way to do it, because the hiring is gonna
That's
happen.
fine, I just told him.
Well, because next week's meeting isn't until the,
The third, and it's after the start on. the
yeah,
first.
next week's meeting is the 4th, so, and she's gonna be starting on what, Saturday,
No,
Friday?
But she's not because some.
Well, let's wait till next week then.
And
Thank you for-
it's
thank you for
conditioned
considering.
on
Condition.
the successful completion of the background check,
Which isn't gonna be done.
which won't be done, so she can't be hired till that is done.
There you
After the completion of the background check, if it's okay, she could start anytime after the 1st of June.
And,
Way it's right.
and sometimes our conditions are conditions. There, it includes all conditions, conditions precedent, conditions subsequent, like if something came in after the start date. So we'll deal with it that way, but I just wanted to let you communicate that since it came from him, right?
Is it, by the way, is there any chance of moving up our negotiation time?
I can try to find that out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Is there anything else for discussion?
Well, next workshop, I'd like to have put an hour aside to work on these new ordinances that we need to change. Thursday, we had a couple of them. Probably should have never taken place if we would change, tweak our ordinances a little bit. Like one time there was 4 elderly couple, they lived next to another elderly couple. And they had to get a feedlot permit because it was a certified feedlot. Well, certified feedlot with 6 horses, is that a feedlot? We should.
Yeah,
put
but
a-
it's a registered 50-unit feedlot, right?
Well,
So,
that's the trouble. There's no, we should put a limit on what size it got, how many animals, like 25 animals. If you don't have 25, you're not a certified feedlot. That would help a
no,
lot.
because these registered feedlots that have been applied for many years ago for 50 units. You know, that was a common one back in the day when it started.
Mhm.
I mean, that's good for life.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I know what you're referring to, that one guy wants to build a house, so you got a variance to build a house closer to a feedlot. Which can be done, but then it puts a restraint on that feedlot in the future if it wanted to expand. So if they wanted to go get a bigger animal unit, let's say 100 or 200, then they would have to go and turn and get a variance to put a bigger one in. But it wouldn't affect their current one.
No, I always thought we could maybe change like, so if you got 10 head of horses or something. We put on, if you wanna be a certified feedlot, you gotta have 35 head on your farm all year round.
You can't do that because. Numbers fluctuate throughout the year. I mean, you can't say, well, if you don't have 50 units or less. Or more, or whatever, 50 units or less, you can't. You know, if you don't keep them numbers up, how do you police that? I mean, you're gonna have to have somebody go around counting head or whatever.
Well, I got a 50 animal feedlot in my place and I have no animals.
I know.
And I haven't had any animals for 4 years. Well, I've had some off and on during the summer. I put some on pasture, but
Right.
during the winter time, I don't
Right.
have no. animals.
I mean, how would you implement that, I guess is what I'm asking. It'd be kind of tough.
I would say, well, Greg Mary, if you don't have 35 head here and you're in a little feedlot, then you can't be a feedlot. I mean,
I,
I mean,
I don't know. You
I
did,
mean, everybody's got, I mean, there's horses and goats and.
yeah, that goes
Do
with the
not,
property.
do not the feedlot go with the property, just like.
Yeah, it goes with the property. It goes with the property.
And can you ask to have that feedlot?
If you wanted to,
removed?
if you want to remove it or get rid of the feedlot, you couldn't request that. I'm sure they'll do that.
But otherwise, I mean, it's a value to the property.
Exactly.
I just said that.
Well, if we plan on farming, that's a good one. I mean, that's a
But
good.
the next buyer might want that feedlot. So if you don't have any animals on there, that's fine.
Yep.
You just got a feedlot with no animals.
It's just like having something on your property, a shed or some certain thing, you're not using it. But then the next person coming along says, oh, that's a value, I'll pay you a little extra because the shed is there or the feedlot there or some other. Thing that's available. That you're not using. But it's available and it's a value to me or somebody who wants that. 50 lot or 50 animal thing.
On the other side of the coin, for what Greg's talking about, if somebody wants to build a house closer to the feedlot than the zoning ordinance allows, they can come and get a variance to do that, right?
That which happened here last week.
Right.
And that's where you're supposed to address it. So,
Yeah.
I mean. They gotta take that into consideration when they do these variances that, okay, we're gonna give this guy a variance. That means they're gonna be closer to the feedlot. And you never know what's gonna happen in the future.
Well, my feedlot permit has no good for my value of my farm. I only got 5 acres, so. That feedlot is.
That's a unique situation.
Yeah, it's ruthless to me. Because. It's 5 acres. What do you do with 5 acres?
So you could come in and ask that feedlot.
Yeah. I
The
could
use
probably
permit
do-
for feedlot be removed, if you want.
There's that job.
If somebody wanted to build a house next to me, I'd probably drop it just so I wouldn't have to spend $750.
Well, we can certainly have discussions on ordinances.
Well, we better get on them because we gotta get them changed. And if we don't start on them and work on them a couple times during the workshop, how are we gonna get it done?
Well, I know Amelia said that they were, they're kind of busy right now, but I mean. They would do some research and look at things that should be addressed.
Well, how are we gonna know unless we start into it? Let's get into it and figure out what we wanna
We
change it.
can bring them in and have a discussion
Yeah.
about some of that stuff.
I think we should. Let's get going. on
We
it.
should all read the ordinances too, so we're familiar with.
So make sure all your Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission people read their ordinances too, because there's only 4 on our board that knew what the ordinance were. The other 3 didn't have a clue.
Well, we don't,
Well, I mean,
I mean, everybody better learn the ordinance.
you've gotta, yeah. Anything else? Is there no closing public comment? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Motion made and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.